We're going to begin today in the Gemara on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, towards the bottom where it says the Tnan. That's 7 or 8 lines up from the bottom of the Yomid. The Gemara here is discussing a concept called Zilusa Debei Dina, which means if Bezdin gave out a psak din, but then later on things changed. The Gemara was discussing a case where there were eidim that were contradicting each other. But there was one detail that there was no contradiction, so we followed that testimony to Paskin. But then later on, the other eidim also contradicted that point as well. So now the psak din we gave before was contradicted. So what do we do now? Do we change from the original psak din or not? So the Gemara says that in the end, Rav Nachman says, yes, we change from that psak din. And the chiddush here is lizilusa de beidina loy chashinan. We're not concerned about the fact that by changing that original psak din, it can look embarrassing or disgraceful for the bezdin that it gives one psak and then it changes to a different psak. But Rav Nachman says, I have a thick rope to hang on to because I can bring you a source of Tanoim that hold that this idea of changing the psak din does not matter. We're not concerned about zilusa de beidina. I mentioned yesterday what it says in the Rishonim that in a case where it's clear that you must change the psak din, the discussion of our Gemara doesn't begin. The discussion about Zilusa de Beidina is in the case that we're talking about here, where even after there's something that changed, which is a reason for Bezdin to change the Psak Din, but what really changed here? What changed is that now there's another group of Eidim that came, and therefore there's a suffix. So the question is, am I going to change the Psak Din because of a suffix if it could be a Zilusa de Beidina? That's the discussion. So the Gemara here is going to bring a Mishnah, and based on the discussion and the interpretation of this Mishnah, all the way at the end of the Gemara here, we'll see that all the Tanoim mentioned in this Mishnah hold that we're not concerned about Zilusa de Beidina. Let's see. So what's this Mishnah? The Tanan. The Mishnah says in Masechta Ksubis, Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein mailin lekohuna al pi edechad. You can't bring a person to be on a proper kayin, which means to be a kayin that gets truma, a kayin that could do birchas kayinim, that we consider him to be a kosher kayin just based on the words of one aid, of one witness. Amar Rabbi Lazar, and Rabbi Lazar explains Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Emasai, when is that the case that you can't rely on the words of an eid echad? B'makim sheyesh oiridin. In a case when there were people that were challenging his validity of being a kayin. But in a situation where there's no challenge to his validity as a kayin, you can establish him to be a kosher kayin just by the words of one witness. Okay, so Rabbi Lazar is not arguing with Rabbi Yehuda; he's explaining what Rabbi Yehuda said. You could validate a kayin to be a kosher kayin just based on the words of one aid. Okay, so the Gemara wants to understand what is this machlokes about, and the way the Gemara asks the question is Rav Shimon Gamliel, Hainu Rabbi Lazar. It seems that Rav Shimon Gamliel is not saying anything different than Rabbi Lazar, because even Rabbi Lazar said that when there's no one challenging this person's validity as a kayin, you can rely on an eid echad. So the Rashbam says Rav Shimon Gamliel is not coming to say that when there is a serious challenge, that then you could rely on Eid Echad. It's not logical to say that. When there's a serious challenge, everybody would agree that you can't rely just on one witness. So if Rav Shimon Gamliel is saying you can rely on one witness, he's saying the exact same thing as Rabbi Lazar, that that's only when there's no challenge. So what is the argument here about? If you'll suggest to say as follows, Aror Chad Ikke Benayu. What they're arguing is, when you say that there's a challenge to the validity of this kayin, there can be different levels of a challenge. What's the question about him? Maybe they're arguing, what's if the case is that there was a challenge to his validity as a kayin, but only one person challenged his validity as a kayin. That's it. So over here, now the question is, if one aid says that this kayin is puzzle, now another aid, one aid comes along and says, no, I say that he's kosher. So in such a case, Rabbi Lazar says, Irur Chad, that when you have a challenge of just one aid, so now you can't use one aid to go against that aid to say that he's kosher. In such a case, you're going to need two aidim to be machsharim. But Rav Shimon Gamliel's opinion is, Arar Trei, that only when you have a challenge to his validity as a kayin, as a kosher kayin of two witnesses, then one aid won't be believed to be machsharim. But if you have a challenge of one witness, and now one witness comes and says, no, he's kosher, we will accept this one witness that says that he's kosher against that one witness that says that he's puzzle. And the reason for this is, why should I accept a witness that says that he's kosher against the one that says that he's possible? It's 1 against 1. So here there's a basic point that's negated to the whole piece of Gemara here, that this person has a cheskas kashrus. Every kohen, there's a presumptive status of him being a kosher kohen. So if there's now a suffix, 1 against 1, we should accept that second A that says that he's kosher and follow the chazakah that he's probably a kosher kohen. A kohen, we presume, is kosher, as we'll see soon here in the Gemara. Chazakah is based on the fact that his father was kosher. We knew that his father was kosher, right? Well, that's what we're talking about over here. So because, we knew that the father's a kohen, and we knew that the father's a kosher kohen. So if the father's a kosher kohen, so there's a chazakah that the child that's born is also a kosher kohen. That's the presumption.
He's a cholo.
Again?
He's a cholo.
Yeah, there's one aid that's saying that he's a cholol. And which means that he was born from his father that got married to a grusha or a chalutza. That's what makes him puzzle. But there's a cheskas kasher saying that if his father was kosher, probably he's kosher as well. So in this case, when there's 1 against 1, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that it'll be kosher. But Rabbi Lazar is still machmer in such a case, that you shouldn't accept a cheskas kasher. Rabbi Lazar says that no, 1 against 1 doesn't work, and therefore you're going to be puzzle. That could be a possible explanation for the machlokes here. But the Gemara says that's not the right explanation. Why not? Because Rabbi Yochanan said, and Tosfos here says, Rabbi Yochanan actually said this about this Mishnah here, that Divrei HaKoil, everybody agrees, Ein Arar Pachas Mishnayim, that the lashon that Rabbi Lazar was talking about, that there was a challenge to the validity of this kohen being a kosher kohen, it's not less than 2 people that said this. Stam, one person that comes and says that this kohen is not valid, that's not a real challenge to his validity. The Irer meant that there were 2 people that came and said that he's possible. That's the concept of the Irer. So Elo Arar Trei. So if so, we must say that Rabbi Lazar, when he says that there are 2 people that are challenging the validity of this person being a kosher kohen, and there, in such a case, he says that now 1 aid to say that he is kosher won't work. You're going to have 2 aidim now. Now, so if so, how do we explain this machlokes? What is the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Lazar on one hand and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel on the other hand? What are they arguing about when there's argument here whether you could accept 1 aid or not? Says the Gemara, the case is as follows. And here there's going to be a few details to this case. First of all, the way this case begins is, the Gemara really could have spelled this out in the beginning, but this is really for the basic shot of this Mishnah, that this all starts out with a chazakah. Mechaskin alei ba'avua dahai the kohen who there's a chazakah that this person's father was a kosher kohen, and then v'nafak alei kala. Now this rumor comes out, the ben grusha or ben chalutzahu. Okay, just a rumor about him that his father married a grusha or a chalutza, and therefore he is a chalal. He's not a kosher kohen anymore. And because of this rumor, v'achsine, they took him away from being able to serve as a kohen in the Beis HaMikdash or being able to get truma. Now, the Rashbam explains right away that this achsine is not something really me'ikar adin, because we just said, Rabbi Yochanan said that you can't just a rumor itself or even 1 aid itself does not invalidate a kohen. Elamai, Rashbam says to be baidik. This is a sort of to be machmir, to be stringent until they're going to check out the matter, to see what's the origins of this rumor. So they temporarily took him down until they're going to figure this out. And then what happened? They're investigating the matter. And an Eid comes along and says, the Kayinu, that he is a kosher Kayin. So Vaskine, they put him back to his place to allow him to serve as a kosher Kayin. When the case of a rumor, just 1 aid is okay to verify the matter. That's something that everybody agrees, because a rumor is not anything significant. So 1 aid then brought him back that he's able to serve as a Kayin. Now then, va'asu beitrei va'amri the ben grusha v'chalutzuhu. Now 2 Eidim came and testified that this person, actually his mother, was a grusha or a chalutza, and therefore he is pasul. Now vachsine, after that happened, so now they removed him from being a kosher kain. It's not, now there's 2 saying that he's pasul against that 1 aid that said that he was kosher. But then after this, va'asa eid echad va'amar the kayinu. Now another aid came along and said that I can testify like the aid that was there in the beginning to say that he is a kosher kohen. So now if you look at the story, you basically have 2 against 2. This is a trey. You have 2 saying that he's a ben grusha ben chalutza. Then you have that 1 aid that testified in the beginning that he's kosher. And then you have another aid here now that's testifying as well that he's kosher. So now what's the question? Now here is where the machlokes comes in. This eid echad at the end that's coming and saying that he's kosher, could you rely on that eid echad? So the Gemara explains. Everybody agrees, mitztarfen eidus, that we could combine the eid echad that came to testify in the beginning and the eid echad that came in the end. Even if they're not coming together, they don't see each other, they're not testifying at the same time together, doesn't matter. I combine that testimony of the eid echad in the beginning and the eid echad that came later at a later date. It's like one eidus. So now, if so, why? What's the question here? If that would be the case, the halacha here should be that this kain should be kosher. Why? Because it's 2 against 2, and if it's 2 against 2 regarding the question of the validity of this kain, we should be machsharim, as I mentioned before, because there's a cheskas kashrus. In a case where there's a doubt about the validity of this kain, we go back to the cheskas kashrus that his father was a kosher kain, so he's a kosher kain. Rashbam actually adds another detail besides the cheskas kashrus. Since with that eid echad we were once machshirim before, we go back to that status that we were machshirim before. That's what the Rashbam adds. Other Rishonim disagree with that. But al-kapanim over here, in such a case, because it's a suffix, we should be machshirim. But here though comes the machlokes between Rabbi Lazar and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, whether we can be machshirim now at this point. Because why? Because v'hacha b'meichesh l'zilusa the beidina kamiflagi. What we could say is that the argument is, if we're not going to be machshirim, so then this is going to become disgraceful for the bezdin, because we just passled him with 2 eidim, and now again you're going to be machshirim. You're changing that psak din. And again, like I mentioned before, the point of here is when we're going to change the psak din now, we're not changing the psak din now with a din vadai, because now there's no suffix about this. No, it's a matzav of a suffix because it's 2 against 2. But with the cheskas kashrus, we're going to say let's be machshirim. But that's still a shaky. It's something which is a suffix. So the question is, once bezdin paskin based on 2 eidos, now that it's 2 against 2, should we change the psak din when it could be disgraceful for the bezdin? Rabbi Lazar Savar.
In a regular case, you always say 2 against 2, and you tell the chazaka.
Again, the 2 against 2.
In every case, you say 2 against 2, you tell the chazaka.
And a chanami. But the question is whether here, once there was already a psak din, there's a concept of zlusa de beidina. It's going to be embarrassing for the bezdin to change that psak din. Whenever we put it on the chazaka, it's not because bevados you just have 2 eidim that are saying so. If l'mashal in this case it would turn out that the 2 eidim that came and said that this person is not a valid kain were found to be eidim zaymimin, is there going to be a question whether we change the psak din? Of course we're going to change the psak din. There's no issue of zlusa de beidina. The 2 eidim that testified are liars. But that's not what happened there. The 2 eidim that came were not found to be liars. It's just another 2 eidim that we have that are saying a different story. So now it's sort of an union of a suffix. True, you have a chazaka to go by, but it's still 2 against 2. The question is whether in such a case, bezdin will change. So Rabbi Lazar holds, Kiven dach sinei, once because of the 2 that said that he's puzzle, we removed him of being a kayin. Loi maskin alei. We do not now validate him again. Chayshina lezilusa de beidina. Because we're concerned about the fact that this will be embarrassing for the bezdin. Rav Shimon Gamliel Savar, however, Rav Shimon Gamliel's opinion is, Ananach Sinei, just like we, the bezdin, can remove him of being a kayin, Anan Maskinale, and we will bring him up again to validate him to be a kosher kayin, or Lizilusa de Beidina, Loi Chashinan. And we're not concerned about the embarrassment of the bezdin here in this case. So according to this interpretation, this discussion about Zilusa de Beidina is the argument here in this Braisa. Okay, the Rashbam over here just points out one detail in the story. The way the Gemara started off the story was that there was a rumor here about him, that he wasn't an apostle of Kain. The Rashbam says that detail of the story wasn't really necessary for the Gemara to mention. The Gemara just mentioned it because it wanted to explain why was an Eid Echad coming to testify that he's valid. What's an Eid Echad coming for? What do we need this Eid Echad for? So therefore the Gemara starts off the story with the fact that there was a rumor about him. There was a rumor that he's not kosher. So, okay, with that, this is the point here of the story, that it's 2 against 2, and it's in this eifim when you have 1 in the beginning and 1 at the end, and now the question is whether we can validate him again or not. Okay, now on this pshat though, this is not the final pshat, because maskefla Ravashi. Ravashi asked on this interpretation of the machlokes, ihachi, if this is what they're arguing about, that now that there's a 1-8 at the end, whether we should change the psak din or not, ma'ir yachat. So why are you describing the case the way you did, and in order to make it fit into the words of the Mishnah? The Mishnah said that there's an Eid Echad here, and they're arguing whether we can rely on this Eid Echad to now be machshirim. It's not only about an Eid Echad. Afil betrei nami. Even if at the end there were 2 Eidim, that came and said that he's kosher. You had 2 that came and said that he's pasul, and now 2 come at the end and say that he's kosher. The same machlokes would apply. That they're arguing whether I could change that psak din from the psak din we had before. Should we be chayshish with zilusa de beit dine or not? So it doesn't fit into the Braisa, which is saying that, or the Mishnah rather, that they're arguing in a case where there's 1 aid that comes at the end. So this can't be the basis of the machlekes. So therefore Ravashi explained and said, the kula alme, that really all opinions here in this Mishnah agree that lo yichashina lezilusa de beidina, that we're not concerned about changing the psak din when you have 2 edim at the end. In other words, the fact that this Mishnah is medayik, that we're talking about 1 aid that came at the end. And the way we described the story before, that you had 1 aid that came in the beginning that said he's kosher, in between you had 2 edim that came and said that he's pasul, then you had 1 aid at the end. The fact that the Mishnah is medayik, that it shows that the zilusa de beidina is not the issue. Everybody agrees that that's not a problem. So v'hacha, rather over here, what's the argument? The argument is actually this point itself. Could I combine the 8 in the beginning and the 8 at the end that testify that they're not testifying together? Could I combine that testimony that it should be considered 1 edus or not? And this is the argument of these Tanoim here. The argument is that Tanya, as we learned in Braisa, there's 2 arguments about edus. The first argument here is not relevant for our case. The second argument here is going to be relevant. So the first argument is La'olam ein edusam mitztarefes ad sheyiru shneim kechad. The Tanna Kama there says you can't combine 2 people that testify about something unless they are testifying about the same thing. Meaning, if you have 1 aid that says so and so borrowed $1,000. And another aide comes and says, I can't testify, I wasn't there, I didn't see if he borrowed $1,000, but I can testify something else, that I heard him admitting that he owes $1,000. They're both testifying the same point, that he owes $1,000, but one was there on Sunday and saw him borrow the money. Another says, I was there on Monday and I heard him admitting that he owes the money. So you can't combine this edus, because they're not edus that are witnessing the same thing together at the same time. Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, however, Rabbi Shua ben Karcha says, that even if one saw something on Sunday, the other one saw on Monday, but they're both seeing the same thing, that he owes $1,000, they can both testify together. Okay, that's one point. Now, another point, and this is what's negay here to our Gemara, Ein edusam miskayemes bebezdin ad sheyidu shneim ke'efer. The Tanna Kama holds Eidim testifying in Bezdin, their testimony does not work together unless they actually come together into the Bezdin to testify together.
But they're not allowed to be together.
No.
When they're testifying.
When you do the bedikah, chakira, drisha, fine. But they have to come to Bezdin at the same time, though. These 2 Eidim come together to testify. However, Rav Nassan says, we hear the words of 1 aid one day, and then when another aid is going to come at a later point, tomorrow, whenever later he comes, we'll hear the later aid, and then we will combine the words of both of them together. And that did here, this machlokes of the Tanna Kama and Rav Nassan is the machlokes over here in this Mishnah when it was discussing whether you could be Maila, a Kayin, based on the word of an Eid Echad. The case here was that there were 2 Eidim that passed, but there was an Eid Echad earlier on that came to be Machsher, and then at a later date there was another Eid Echad that came to be Machsher. And the question is, could I combine the Eid Echad later to the Eid Echad in the beginning and be Machsher? That's what Rav Shimon Gamliel says, you could combine them. And Rabbi Elazar, explaining Rabbi Yehuda, says, no, you can't be machsher, because they came in different times, so you can't be machsher the Eid Echad that comes later. What comes out from this whole discussion? That the fact that the Mishnah is medayik to explain this machlokes is dafke in this case, where there's an Eid Echad in the beginning and Eid Echad in the end, not in the case where there's 2 Eidim saying pasul, 2 Eidim saying kosher at the end, is because if that would be the case, everybody would agree that we would change the psak din, because there's the lusa de bedin olechashin. We're not concerned about the fact that it's a disgrace for the bezdin by changing this psak din. So this was the source of Rav Nachman, that he said, I have a ashler rabri, I have all the Tanaim in this Mishnah here. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon ben Azgan, they all hold that the zilusa de bedin is not an issue. Sagt the Gemara, another story. Ahu da'ama lechavre. Person says to his friend, like all the cases we had before, my boy is bahayara. What are you doing here in this land? Amalei, he answers him, I bought it from you. And v'hoshtare, I have a document to verify that I bought it from you. Okay, so here we're talking about someone that is in this field and he's not there long enough to establish a chazakah 3 years, but he has a document that he bought the property. Amalei, so the one that was challenging his ownership tells him, shtare zayfuhu. It's a forgery. The document you have is a forgery. So now what happened? So this individual that presented this document, so he bent down and whispers into Rabbi's ears, in Shtara Zaifuhu, it is a forgery, but Miu, however, I want you to know, Shtara Ma'alya Havali. I had a valid document, Virchis, and I lost it. Va'amina, and I said to myself, Inkit hai biyadoi kolduhu. I'll bring this forged document, I shall have something in my hands to prove that it's mine. But the truth is that I did have a good document. Okay, that's the story here. So how do we paskin here in this case? Now there is a discussion here in the Rashbam when this person admitted that it's a document, a forgery. What does the Gemara mean? The simple pshat of the Gemara is that it was an actual forgery, literally forged a star. But there is another pshat that the Rashbam brings in the name of Rabbeinu Chananel, that it wasn't mamish a forgery. It was a star that was written for a different sale, or it was a star that was written even before the sale, with a certain trust that it's not going to be used because the sale didn't actually happen. But it wasn't mamish a forgery. A different pshatim about this. So now Amar Rabbe Paskind here, ma loy l'shaker. That here we can see that this person is honest. Just like every time we say ma loy l'shaker or migu, which means that this person had an option to win it in Torah very simply and easily. And so why should this person be lying? Why would this person come and admit? It's only because he's honest. If this person would want, he can come and say that it's a valid document. This document, they couldn't detect any forgery in it. And he presented here this document. He could have easily just stuck to his words and said that this is a good document. So the fact that he came and he admitted that this document is a forgery, and I had another document that was the real document, and it's just that I lost it. This is just showing that this person is honest. So this is basically the regular concept of amigo. This person he could have in this case actually it's even stronger than a regular amigo. It's not that he could have said another taina. He already said that. He already brought that good document. All he had to do is keep his mouth closed. There was no reason for him to admit that it was a forgery, and then he would have been believed. So therefore, we can see that this person is honest, and therefore he wins. He can keep the land based on the fact that we see that he's trustworthy. Amalei Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef says to Rabbi's Psakdin, no, this is incorrect. Amai kasamches ahai shtare. What are you relying upon? This star that he's holding in his hands. You're saying that he's a trustworthy person, and therefore we're going to rely on the star that he's holding in his hands to say that he has proof that this land is his. But hai shtare chaspe ba'almu. But here, this star that he's holding in his hands, he already admitted that it's a broken piece of earthenware. It's worthless. He said that it's a forgery, so he has no proof that the land is his. So therefore, he loses. He can't stay in this land. That was Rav Yosef's psak. So there's a big discussion here in the Rishonim to explain why does Rav Yosef disagree with the migu that Rabbi just explained. Rabbi just explained. We see how this person is honest. So the Rashbam here says because over here in this case, his entire ability to hold on to the land is all with the taina that he has this star. Now, the migu in this case is not going to work because the migu is supposed to come and be mechazik the taina that he's saying. It's supposed to come and show us that he's trustworthy with the taina that he's saying. But in this case, the actual taina that he's saying, which is that he has this star, is a lie. It's chaspa ma'alma. So therefore, the migu doesn't work. That's what the Rashbam says. What the Rashbam says is not so simple to understand. The Rishonim ask on the Rashbam, his taina is not that the shtar is mine. His taina is that the karka is mine, that the piece of land is mine. He's using the shtar as a proof. True, the shtar cannot serve as a proof. It's a chaspe ba'alma, but the fact is, there's a migu. We have here a sign that this person is trustworthy, that he's an honest person.
Yeah, at the beginning he came with the star. It was like it's a good star.
Correct.
So afterwards,
then only later he admitted.
So,
correct.
So at the first time, is considered as a trick or something like that. I mean,
right. That he did this all as a trick. Okay, so there are other pshatim here and the Rishonim here. Some Rishonim say that the reason is that there's a klal migu lohaitzi lo yamrina. Taisus here discusses this, that you don't say a migu ever, this concept to give a person trust with this, that he could have said a better taina and therefore it shows that he's honest. You never use that when you want to be mitzi something, when you want to take money out of someone else. Here you're talking about a karka that you have no chazak on. So it's the one that's challenging your ownership, which is the Marakama that has the real presumptive status of ownership. He is the muhsik. So you're coming to be mitzi. You want to take away the karka from him. The migu does not have the power to take away something from someone. Another pshat Tosfos says is that migu never works when you have to first lie in order to then prove that you're honest. The person here had no shtar. He lost his shtar. The only way he's getting into this position where he's able to now come and show and prove that he's honest is by first lying. Is by first forging a shtar. There is no migu if you first had to do a forgery to lie and then based on that to claim and then prove your honesty. It doesn't work that way. So therefore there is no migu here. Okay, there's more pshatim Rishonim, but this is some of the ways of understanding this Gemara. Now the Gemara brings another case which is basically identical to this case. It's just instead of it speaking about a piece of land, it's speaking about a loan. A person said to his friend, pay me $100 that I am demanding of you that you owe me. And he says, here, I have a shtar that you owe me $100. So this person says, this shtar that you're showing that I owe you $100, it's a forgery. So the story again was, this person went down to Rabbe and he said, in shtar zayfuhu, yeah, it's a forgery. However, I had a good shtar that he owes me the money and I lost it. And I said, let me at least have something in my hands to show that he owes me the money. So again, Omar Rabbe Paskin, Maloy l'shaker. That this person, we know that he's saying the truth. Why would he lie? We see here that Iboi Omar this person could have just easily stuck to the shtar that he presented in the beginning and claimed that that's a good shtar. So the fact that now he's admitting that it's a forgery and he could have said that that's a good shtar, it shows that he's honest. Like every migu, or even stronger than every migu, he already had that taina going for him, so therefore he's believed. Amalei Rav Yosef, but on this Rav Yosef says, no, you can hear there's no migu. Amai kasamches, ahai shtare. The migu here is coming to say that when he presented this shtar, that's true, so you're relying on the shtar. Hai shtare, chas b'balmuhu. The shtar that he presented is a broken piece of earthenware. So therefore, this migu, in this case, does not work for the reasons that I explained before. So the exact same machlokes between Rabbi and Rav Yosef. On this, the Gemara says, Amar Ravidi Baravin said about this argument of Rabbi and Rav Yosef, Hilchase, Kavasei de Rabbi Ba'are. We're going to follow Rabbi's opinion when it comes to the argument regarding the piece of land. And the Hilchase, Kavasei de Rav Yosef Bezuzi. And regarding the second case, where this person was trying to collect money alone, here we're going to pass like Rav Yosef, that he can't collect the money. And the Gemara explains, the reason we pass like Rabbi when it comes to the case with the land, because the Heicha de Kaim are taken. Because since the Rashbam's explanation for this Gemara is that Rav Idi Bar Ovin said that it's a suffix who we pass like. It's not clear if you pass like Rabbi or like Rav Yosef. So in a case where it's a suffix, what do? Wherever the land is or wherever the money is, that's where it stays. So therefore, when it comes to the Ara, to the piece of land, Heicha de Kaim are taken. Where it is, it remains. The one that's right now occupying the land, which was the individual that presented this shtar, he's right now in the land, so he stays there. That's regarding the karka. And by the money, we pass like Rav Yosef, the heicha de kaim mezuzah like me. Let the money stay where it is. The person that presented this false shtar, he wanted to collect money from his friend. So we don't allow him to collect that money, and the money stays where it is. Okay, there's also a discussion here in Tosfos on this here. The fact that the Gemara says that where the land is, it remains, is not so pashut, because usually the chazaka of a piece of land is not the one that's physically occupying the land right now. The morakama is the one that's the real mochsek here. So here, if there's a suffix, why are we saying that the one that's in the land right now has the chazaka and he remains there? So a big question here in the Rashbam. Tosfos has a different shot, okay, but this is the way the Rashbam learns the Gemara.
The mashmaut is that someone could come with a shtar zayfa, and just because he lost a shtar, and you're making a whole new halacha that you come with a shtar zayfa and say, well, I had a shtar, but I lost it, and I have a shtar zayfa. I mean, it's like a whole new thing that's unprecedented.
And we say that this shtar zayfa was a kind of shtar that they couldn't detect that it's a shtar zayfa. Look, there's no reason we should assume that it's a shtar zayfa. The other person is arguing with you that it's a forgery, and you went and admitted that. But I'll leave it to them as though when he came in with the shtar into the bezdin, we can't detect any ziyah from the shtar. It's a shtar makuyim. It's been verified. It's a good shtar. So he has the upper hand in that sense. The Gemara brings another story, Hahu Arve, which is connected to this Gemara. Hahu Arve, there was a person that was a guarantor for a loan. So you have the borrower and the lender, and then this person says to the lender, if the borrower doesn't pay, I guarantee and I'll pay for him. So this guarantor came, and he says to the borrower, reimburse me $100 that I paid your loan to the lender. Right, so he paid for him, but the expectation that eventually he's going to get reimbursed. So he says to him, okay, reimburse me for this that I paid your loan. And he presented a shtar, and he said, look, here, I got back the document of the loan, and the reason I have it is because the lender gave it to me after I paid him. That's my proof that I actually paid your loan. Amalei, so the borrower says to him, Laf piraticha, didn't I already reimburse you? Didn't I pay you already for this that you paid the loan? So Amalei, so the Orev, this guarantor says to him, but Lav Hodris Shaklasinu Minoi. But didn't you then borrow the money from me again? You paid me, but then you said, you came back to me an hour later and you said, I'm sorry, I need to borrow money again. So you borrowed money again. So now if you think about this case, this is a similarity to the story before. Why? Because the guarantor that presented a shtar here, he presented a shtar from the original loan that he got from the lender when he paid that original loan. And he's presenting that shtar as proof that the borrower should reimburse him for that payment. But the truth is that shtar is not valid anymore. That shtar is done. That's been paid up already. You're presenting that shtar and claiming that now he borrowed money from you a second time. How are you using a shtar from the previous loan as proof for this that he borrowed money from you a second time? It's like a shtar zayfa. So the question is, what's the halacha here? Shalcha Rav Yidi Barovin lekamed Abaye. So Rav Yidi Barovin asked Abaye, "Kai gavna mai? How do we paskin here?" Shalach le Abaye. So Abaye sent back to Rav Yidi Barovin, "Mai te boyle." Why is Rav Yidi Barovin asking me this question? Ha Iuda Omar. Didn't he paskin before in the case when you had this very similar regarding a shtar? That hilchasik of a seder rabbe ba'ara. When it comes to a piece of land, the one that's occupying the land stays there. And the hilchasik of a seder Rav Yosef bezuzeh. But when it comes to money, you're pasking like Rav Yosef that you can't take out money from someone else. The echadoik mezuzah like me, that where the money is, it stays. So over here as well, when you have this shtar that's really not valid anymore, because that original loan was paid up, you were paid up for it already. Now this shtar, you want to use a outdated shtar for a new loan. You can't do that. Elamai, it's just like in the previous case, he didn't have to admit that he already got paid and now there was a new loan. He didn't have to. He could have just kept to his original claim that here, this is a valid shtar, you owe me money, you never paid me. So it's mamish like the previous case. So over here, in this case, the psak din that Rav Idi Barovin himself said before, that when it comes to trying to take out money from someone else, you can't take out money. So therefore the same psak din applies here. Well, the Gemara asks a clarification. V'hani mili, when do I say that you can't use that outdated shtar and it's a new loan? The amalei hadres as of sinu minoi. When this guarantor says that, the first loan was paid up, you reimbursed me already, but not you borrowed money again from me. So then it's an outdated shtar. Aval amalei hadres sinu ne'aloch machmastav v'shayfe v'sumki. But what happens if the borrower paid this guarantor, reimbursed him for that original loan, and the guarantor says to him, what are you giving me here? You're giving me here coins that are not good in circulation. I can't use these coins. They're rubbed out. And he returned the payment to him. He didn't accept that payment. So then akati is the shtar. So then the shtar that he's presenting is still, it's not outdated. It's still a valid shtar because you paid me, but I immediately returned you the money, not as a new loan. It was never paid. So therefore, then he could collect with that shtar. It's the same original shtar with the same original shibud that still applies here.